Good afternoon, guys. It's Thursday already, March 5th, 2020. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about the Carter Page lawsuit in a second, but I want to thank our sponsor, Noble Gold. In 6 months' time or a year, however long it takes to sort out the stock market nonsense, the virus stuff, where will you guys be financially? Will you be in the same place? Will you be worse off? Or will you be better off? If you guys are losing money in the stock market right now and your retirement fund is taking a hammering, you should do something different. You don't have to be a victim of the volatility of the markets. By using some precious metals to back up your investments, you can give yourself a safety net, protect you and your family from financial hardship. You could put these into your IRA or 401k rollover and get a tax break to boost your return even further. Noble Gold has helped hundreds of clients to do this, and their reviews on customer sites show how happy folks are with the results. I've gotten a few emails, to be honest. Join them today. Talk to a Noble Gold specialist. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com. And when this video is over, the information will be in the description box below for you guys. Hey, everyone. Hi from Kansas. Hello from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Hello from Washington. Yes, Pocahontas is out. I'm going to bring in the rest of my amazing audiences here. Periscope, Facebook, DLive. Pocahontas is out. Not surprising. Not surprising. Hi, guys. I'm glad you're here. Hey, so today we're going to talk about the Carter Page lawsuit. Super interesting. I'm going to go through it with you. I think I'm going to read a good bit of it because I'm very curious about a few things. Number one, first of all, Carter Page is suing about defamation and all the stuff that happened to him because of the FISA warrants and the press and all that stuff, right? So Carter Page is suing using himself as an individual and his two companies that are sole proprietorships, from what I can see, or sole managers, LLCs. Only he. Morning, everyone. And he's suing the DNC Services Corporation, Perkins Coie, Mark Elias, and Michael Sussman as individuals. So he's suing the DNC as a not-for-profit, the DNC as a for-profit, the DNC Services Corporation. The DNC Services Corporation is for-profit. I'm sorry. There is an entity in here that is is not for profit. There is an entity in here that is for-profit that he's suing in the DNC. He's suing Perkins Coie as a whole, and then he's suing Mark Elias as an attorney, as an individual, not as the attorney, and Michael Sussman as an individual. Here's what I find interesting. The defendants are private actors who use false information, misrepresentation, and other misconduct to direct the power of the international intelligence apparatus and the media industry against a private individual, plaintiff Carter Page, to further their political agenda. Then they go into Dr. Page. In connection with an effort to counter the Trump campaign, defendants undertook to develop opposition research regarding Trump and his campaign, including persons associated with it. As part of the effort, they developed a dossier replete with falsehoods about numerous individuals, especially Dr. Page. Defendants then sought to tarnish the Trump campaign and its affiliates by publicizing this false information. Defendants' effort mobilized the news media against Dr. Page, damaging his reputation and effectively destroying his once private life. The defendants' wrongful actions convinced many Americans that Dr. Page is a traitor to the United States, and as a result, he's received and continues to receive multiple death threats. His businesses have suffered from the information. Their actions have not only damaged plaintiffs' reputations and financial prospects, they've caused Dr. Page to reasonably fear for his safety. Then he says that they have misrepresented his connections to certain foreign nationals to create an impression that he was an agent of a foreign power. Then he says they leveraged those falsities within the FBI and the DOJ, making them present false applications to the FISA court. And then he says that Page was surveilled illegally, covertly by the United States pursuant to FISA for more than a year and saw his reputation fail. we're going to get into the details now. It says, defendant Mark Elias is a natural person who is in D.C. He's a partner at Perkins Coie. He represents the DNC, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, National Democratic Redistricting Committee, Priorities USA, Senate Majority PAC, and House Majority PAC, and represented Barack Obama from 2006, including when he was through his presidency. And in 2016, Elias organized, as per Page, the opposition research which led to the government's surveillance against the plaintiff. Sussman is a person who is living in D.C. He's a partner and has represented the DNC. Then they go through why the court where he filed this, which is in Chicago or in Illinois, why that is the right jurisdiction. And it's basically because all of the DNC business, the headquarters of the DNC, are done in Chicago. So that jurisdiction information is interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in why he would sue Mifsud, or if he will sue Mifsud. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. I'm not sure what he's going to do there, but there are some interesting things in here that I just want to go over with you guys. Why I don't think this lawsuit's going to make it. I'm not an attorney. I don't know. I could be completely wrong here. I'm sure that Carter Page has really, really smart attorneys. But the problem I see, just in my opinion, he says Perkins Coie, Elias, and Sussman are agents of the DNC. He talks about how the Perkins Coie paid Fusion GPS for the opposition research, or the dossier, and then they were paid about $12 million, and it says that Glenn Simpson paid Christopher Steele $168,000. He accuses he says the defendants knew, which is the DNC, Elias, Sussman, and Perkins Coie, that Fusion GPS spread false information about its clients' opponents. In sworn testimony before Congress, multiple individuals have stated that Fusion GPS employs smear experts and uses scorched earth methods to fulfill their task regardless of the truth. They were hired. Then he goes through the Prevezon thing and some other things that Fusion GPS has done. Fusion GPS brought in Christopher Steele to work with it on this project. Steele knew his work was being paid for by the DNC and the Clinton campaign. The DNC and Clinton campaign paid Perkins Coie $12.6 million for its services. In turn, they paid Fusion GPS $1.2 million, of which Steele received $168,000. Then he goes through the false statements that Steele makes about him meeting with Sechin and Rosneft and all that stuff. The DNC, Fusion GPS, and Steele knew the information in the dossier was false. That information was based on unverified and unverifiable statements from unknown sources. In compiling the dossier, Steele did not abide by professional standards for establishing the credibility of sources or verifying information. He has acknowledged that the reports were made up of raw, uncorroborated intelligence and were not meant to be finished projects. It wasn't just unverified, but had errors. Elias stayed apprised of all this, as per Page. After all, he hired Fusion GPS, and as a partner of Perkins Coie, it was critical for him to monitor and direct their work. Elias would loop in others on the information learned from Fusion GPS. Steele and Fusion GPS go to the press on the behalf of the defendants. So now, listen, why isn't he suing Fusion GPS? Like, the entire thing that we're going to go through in a second here, if you want me to, I'll wait and let you tell me. But this lawsuit pretty much attacks Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele. And there's like one or two lines in here about Sussman meeting with somebody or Elias meeting with somebody, and, you know, they commissioned it. I don't understand. You know, this is Perkins Coie. They're going to come back and say, and I'll show you one line in particular in a second. In my opinion, this is how this is going to play out. They're going to come back and say, thank you, Tara. I really appreciate you. they're going to come back and say, we had no idea that this stuff wasn't true. You know, Fusion GPS told us that it was. This wasn't, this wasn't our fault. And somehow, Carter Page is going to have to prove it was. And I just don't understand how that's possible, given there are privilege issues and all kinds of other things. And he goes into, his attorneys go into detail in the suit and talking about the privilege issues that when Fusion GPS was in the midst of all this, they had to decide whether or not they were going to waive privilege. And they decided they were going to waive privilege. It's just very, okay. From at least July 2016 and onward, Fusion GPS shared the false Steele dossier with the press. Perkins Coie hosted at least one meeting, with Fusion GPS and Steele, where they discussed the substance of Steele and Fusion GPS's media outreach. Despite knowing the information in the Steele dossier was uncorroborated, defendants needed to have the information released before the 2016 presidential election in order to further their own political motives. We don't know, or I don't know how Page's attorneys will prove that they knew the information in the Steele dossier was uncorroborated. I hope they can. But I don't know how they'll do that. Fusion GPS and Steele as DNC consultants were eager to comply, were they? Okay. Their loyalty was with their clients and not to discretion or to the truth. Steele was fired from the FBI in late 2016 in large part because he chose to help defendants release the Fusion GPS reports to the public and revealed his confidential relationship with the FBI. In short, Fusion GPS and Steele were not interested in serving the public. Instead, they acted as hired guns whose obligations ran to furthering the interest of their clients. Indeed, Fusion had been accused of acting as an unregistered agent of the Russian government on behalf of its clients like Prevezon. Fusion GPS and Steele met with Yahoo News, the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Washington Post, and CNN, among others. Fusion GPS and Steele briefed them on the Steele dossier and the defamatory information contained within. Okay. I would like to see where the lawsuit against the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Washington Post, and CNN are. Maybe they're coming. Specifically, in September of 2016, Steele and Simpson met with Yahoo News reporter Isikoff. During that meeting, he provided Isikoff with misinformation from the Steele dossier, namely that Page had traveled to Russia and met with close associates of Putin, including Sechin and Devekin, to discuss lifting sanctions against Russia. Steele's info was false. Dr. Page had not and has never met with either of those guys. On information and belief, Steele and Fusion GPS shared these false statements about Dr. Page with Isikoff at the behest and direction of the defendants. Shortly thereafter, he published a Yahoo News article entitled U.S. Intel Officials Probe Ties Between Trump Advisor and Kremlin. Isikoff stated in a February 2nd, 2018 episode of the Yahoo News podcast Skullduggery that his September 23rd article, If They Get to Discovery, Brian, article was based on the information that came from Christopher Steele. The article contained several defamatory statements. For example, he sourced a Yahoo News article that contained information taken directly from the first 3 paragraphs of the dossier, and here it is. The only sources for these statements were Steele and Fusion GPS, and Steele and Fusion GPS made these statements to the Yahoo News reporter. The article frequently attributed statements to a Western intelligence source. That source was Steele and Fusion GPS. The only reports that any U.S. intelligence agency received claiming that Dr. Page had met with sanctioned Russian officials were baseless reports paid for by the defendants. So I guess his argument is that because they paid for it, they're responsible for it. I don't know that. I listen, again, I've read hundreds of lawsuits. I have seen lawsuits that were ridiculously strong be dismissed before discovery for lack of jurisdiction or wrong jurisdiction or whatever. And all this is true, but I think he's suing the wrong people. I just feel like he's suing the wrong people. Or he should have lumped Carter Page in. I mean, he should have lumped Fusion GPS in here. Additionally, Sussman met with General Counsel James Baker. Sussman passed along information which included a thick stack of papers along with the hard drive to Baker for the FBI to investigate. The information related to the FBI's Trump-Russia investigation. The impact of these reports was widespread. Multiple other media outlets began to spread the fake story, relying on the Yahoo News article. More importantly, the false statements sourced from the DNC consultants in the Yahoo News article featured prominently in the false applications for FISA warrants. Defendants defamed Dr. Page. As relevant here, 4 categories of defamatory statements were made. The statements in the reports by Christopher Steele, the statements to journalists, the statements presented to intelligence officials and federal law enforcement, and the false news reports stemming from those statements. The defamatory statements were and are false and defamatory. Defendants made and directed the defamatory statements. Perkins Coie and Ilias worked closely with Fusion GPS and Steele, subcontractors who tailored and disseminated the defamatory statements to the press. Perkins Coie directed Fusion GPS's reporting to the press and intended that the Steele dossier's false information be reported as it was. That's not true necessarily. Not that it's not true. There's a lot more out there in the public sphere that can be used in this that would make it so much more strong without needing discovery. I don't understand. I'm just confused. Like, I was expecting to read a blowout complaint that left, like, literally no question because he has the case. Now, here's an interesting. Here, 76. Well, his life and business were devastated. Here, 76. The average person who read or heard the defamatory statements understood them to be serious charges against Dr. Page, that he was conspiring with the United States geopolitical rival Russia on matters against United States interests. Indeed, persons who read the statements contacted Dr. Page and cursed at him for trading out your Then, down here, he says, the Steele dossier amounted to no more than internet rumor, and it was regularly dismissed as such by people who read it. Which is it? Like, you literally just destroyed your own case in Bullet 84. What is going on? I don't, did you guys understand what I'm saying? Anybody with a remote understanding of, okay, defendants also knew, hold on, it was right here. The average person who read or heard the defamatory statements understood them to be serious charges against Dr. Page. The average person. And then down here, he says, the Steele dossier amounted to no more than internet rumor, and it was regularly dismissed by such by people who read it. So, like, they've never retracted their statements, and then here's the injury and how much money he lost and what happened to his businesses, and he got death threats, and yeah, we know, and it's horrible. Right, if all the stuff that happened at Carter Page is I mean, it's horrible. But it's just not, in my opinion, again, for whatever it's worth. I don't understand why you would completely debunk yourself in your own lawsuit complaint. It doesn't make sense. Like, who's going to pounce on? Who's not? If little old Tracy, who has no idea, like, is not an attorney and just has, like, a logical mind like most people do, can like debunk, like, use this as, I don't understand why another attorney like Perkins Coie would. Or wouldn't. So, that's his lawsuit. That's it. It is on Recap, so I will share the link in the description box for you. I don't know. I hope it, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like I'm kind of speechless. I really expected it to be stronger. Why is he suing the DNC? I mean, I understand why he's suing the DNC, but why isn't he suing Fusion GPS? Why isn't he suing Christopher Steele? You know, the DNC would have to, like, he would have to prove the DNC knew that the information in the dossier was false. And nobody's been able to do that so far. So that's all I'm saying. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on this case. He's asking for a jury trial. Again, jurisdiction is in Chicago, even though Ilyas, Sussman, and everything else happened in D.C. DNC is headquartered in Chicago. I don't know what they'll do about venue or jurisdiction. And we'll have to just keep our eyes on it. I just wanted to hop on real quick here and go over that with you guys. Again, Elizabeth Warren is out. Not surprising. We'll see who she endorses if she decides to endorse everybody. I think she got probably allegedly maybe got a nice little payoff somehow in some form of an in-kind to stick it through Super Tuesday. By the way, Tom Fitton is not an attorney. So to the guy who is saying just save it for Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch, it's Fitton, Fitton, not Finton. He's not an attorney. Just letting you know. The dossier, and let me just address a couple more questions that are coming through here. The dossier is false. It is false. There's no question it's false. Nobody doubts that. I think it's pretty much plain that the dossier is false. That's not the issue. The issue is proving that at the time the DNC knew and Perkins Coie knew the dossier was false. That's what the problem is. And that's what the problem's going to be. Maybe he can do it. That would be something. If he can do it. And again, they were the attorneys for the DNC. So there's going to be a privilege issue. There's going to be a privilege issue there. For sure, they're going to assert privilege even though they've waived it in another case. So there's that too. Anyway, if you guys appreciate the work I do and you'd like to become a patron, I would be honored to have you. You can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. You can find my PayPal address, paypal.me/TracyBeans. Make sure to go to uncoverdc.com. Check out all the stuff we have going up there consistently. And I will talk to you very, very soon. He's not an attorney, Libajane. You're wrong. If you're going to come at me and say something, at least have your facts right. Yeah, he has access to many attorneys at Judicial Watch. This isn't in his purview anyway. They do FOIA litigation. So if you want to send it on over to him for his opinion, I'd be happy to have his opinion on it. And if you don't want mine, it's really easy. You don't have to listen. And have a great day. I will talk to you guys soon.